For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, and share the video if you can. All that stuff helps with the engagement and the algorithms. For those listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the audio only platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. But let's get on to the Euro segment then, Johns. Big game. All the quarterfinals went to, I think. Well,
Extra time.
no. I think the Netherlands-Turkey game in the end ruined it because I think that one was 2-1
True.
in the end. But up until then, all the 3 prior quarterfinals had gone to extra time or penalties. So they were really tight games. Obviously, Spain beat Germany with a relatively last-minute Mikel Merino header. Great header, by the way.
What a header that was.
Unbelievable header to knock out the holders Germany, who I think they were a bit hard done by. I don't know what you felt like, but I thought the Cucurella one, if you go by the other handball decisions, should have been as well. But we don't know what we're doing when it comes to that. So I'm not shocked that it was the opposite.
It was an English referee, was it not?
Shock horror, Michael Oliver, probably, right?
I think it was him or Anthony Taylor.
Yeah, one of those two. But so anyway, Spain, I think not shocking that they go through. They've probably been the best team in the tournament so far. Sad for my pick though, Germany gone out. Yeah. All of my picks are stinking, by the way. Euros and Copa America, they're all just making me look like a right. But anyway, the next game, what was it? Portugal France. Oh my lord, what an absolute smell fest! I watched that again.
That was
on a
horrible
in like a little bar in Greece, and it was shocking. Like we were trying to make it an event, me and a couple of lads watching it, but it was just poor. And France managed to scrape through on pens. I was almost sure that Portugal were going to get through after what Diogo Costa did in the previous round with the penalty shootout, but he didn't
get near any of them.
Didn't get close. Now French penalties were class, and sadly the Portuguese ones were not as class. So France are through to play Spain in the first semi-final. Sorry, and then the big game we'll talk about now: Switzerland, England. I wouldn't say it was the greatest game. It was definitely better than some of the previous England games that we've seen up until this point. England definitely played much better. I don't think they were amazing, but had a lot of the ball, were definitely probing. The midfield looked a lot more purposeful. I thought Declan Rice and Mainu looked much better. Especially Rice, I think he looked much better. And I think people have obviously been very unfair on him, but I felt like he was definitely passing forward even more. It felt almost to like
a lot of great interceptions as well. Like he was really cleaning up a lot
defensively.
He does a lot of things that like are not really called out, right? They don't look amazing, so it's very easy to call on him at the end of a game that we lose and say, "Oh, what did he do? He didn't do anything." Right? If you go off the eye test thing, like he didn't do anything. Like what's the point? And I think most people really look at like last-ditch tackles and stuff like that as a defender, like or in a defensive position. Those are the things that get you the plaudits, right? Like the Guehi type stuff. But in that defensive mid position, a lot of that stuff kind of goes unnoticed. And I think he definitely wasn't great, but
he was better.
He's been more useful. And in this game particularly, he was a lot more useful.
Yeah, and just to touch on that point, because I think you're right. We have a huge problem in England when it comes to appreciating a DM. Like we just do. Like, and it's not to make a Man U thing, but if you go back to like Michael Carrick, right? No one used to rate Carrick, and I understand why, because he was like not flashy at all, and every now and again a superior midfielder would get the better of him. But we're talking about the Xavis and the Iniestas and the Pirlos. We're talking about creme de la creme would get the better of him. But otherwise, he was really good and functional and was making the team tick. And I feel like Declan Rice has generally been doing that. It's not his fault that not a lot of options have opened up in front of him, so he can't really always make incisive forward passes. Sometimes he has to go side to side or backwards to keep the ball flowing and keep the ball ticking. That's just what you have to do in that position. But we're not patient enough to see that vision in England anyway when it comes to that position. And that's why I feel like it's just like a really hard and underappreciated position to play. And I feel like he's been okay. And I think in this game he was better. So I feel like you've got to give him some props.
And I mean, on that point, I think that DM position, or I'm not even going to call that dictating position, even if you're not a DM, but you're like a deep lying centre mid, it's always appreciated after the fact, like way after the fact, right? Like at the time of the Invincibles, Gilberto Silva, no one was like going crazy about him, right? He wasn't considered to be our best midfielder. No one was going crazy about him as part of that team, right? Everyone was talking about the Vieiras, the other players around him. In your team, just like you're saying, right? It was never about the Carricks. It was always about the Scholes and these types of players, right? In Liverpool's team before, it was never really about the Xabi Alonso at the time. I know everyone now is like, oh, Xabi Alonso is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But at the time, a lot of people underappreciated him, right? It was all about Gerrard and the attacking players and so on. It was never really about that DM role. And I feel like it's always after the fact that we go back and say, oh, wow, that he really was a crucial part of keeping that team ticking over. And I think even with Rodri, as much as I hate him, right? Only when he started slapping goals in did people start saying, oh, wow, Rodri's actually sick, right? Like when he started doing offensive things that he didn't necessarily do before that. No one was singing his praises before. But when he started slapping in goals in Champions League semi-finals and whatever else, then everybody starts to focus on him. And then everyone's looking at his unbeaten record and this, that, and the other. So I do think it's generally just like an underappreciated position. If you just do the basics well, no one really calls you out, right? It's only after the fact when we go back and analyze it 1,000 times over do we actually notice what he was doing or actually have an appreciation for it. So I definitely think that comes into it. And then I just think when England performs so poorly, no one's getting off scot-free in that team. Everyone's getting called out. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how good you are, especially if you've got high expectations on you like a Declan Rice, a Kane, a Foden, a Saka, or whatever else. Everyone's going to batter you because you're supposed to, pull the team up and just get a win. So I kind of get it, but I definitely think people have been harsh overall just on a lot of players, right? They're just trying to, one player gets blamed and then the tribalists that support the team that player plays for go and try and move it somewhere else, right? So they call out Declan Rice or they call out John Stones, they call out Kane. They want to push it away from their player. So I get why that happens, but I just think overall it's been a bit overbaked.
No, it has, but I agree with your general point, but I think the Rice one is a slightly more nuanced one because I think it's an English problem. If you go abroad, if you go to the Spains and the Italies and Frances and the different parts of Europe, there's a special appreciation for people that play in whatever you call it, like the regista, deep lying position. Like they see the long game, they see the vision, they understand how important that player is, and they don't necessarily. I guess they understand the nuance of that player's position and what they have to do, and don't maybe hammer him or her for playing sideways passes or doing something that isn't instantly impactful to the game in an offensive way, like you said. With Rice at Arsenal in his club team, he started in that position, and I think unfairly he got quite, he got criticised for maybe not doing some of the things he did at West Ham. Jorginho came in, you moved him to an 8, and you suddenly saw people were lauding Declan Rice, right? I don't think the performances were wildly different. I just think one role's more offensive and the other's more defensive.
Exactly. So, there's a bias towards offensive and attacking roles.
So I feel like while Rice has not been fantastic, he's not dropped stinkers in my mind. Like, I think there are the other players that you talked about in offensive positions have been dropping stinkers, and we'll talk about.
I agree.
We'll talk about this more, but I think the midfield was good. I think Mainu was good again, but again, he's got a slightly easier job in some ways because he's the driver, while Rice is the sitter and the dictator and the destroyer and breaking up the play, intercepting. Mainu doesn't have the same kind of responsibility, I think, in that sense. His responsibility is to get the ball, drive with it and try and make things happen a bit more offensively. It seems like that's the dynamic they've come to between them, right?
It's a different type of role, but I definitely don't want to discount what he did, because there was a period, right, where he got the ball on a half turn with two guys coming at him from both directions, and he managed to just turn on everybody and get through everyone and then just drive forward, and no one gave him an option, so it kind of didn't end up going to anything. But doing that is really difficult, right? And that one moment, I get maybe the kind of hypocritical part of what I'm about to say, but like that offensive part just looks so sick. So doing that is really difficult, and so I don't want to discount his play. I think obviously Man United fans going real hard on him because he's like the only Man United player in the team, but he's definitely been really good. They are just very different roles. But I think they're complementing each other really well.
like it.
Like the two of them together are really good.
Yeah, I like it. I agree with you completely.
Cobby to Arsenal. Come on, let's go.
Joke on. Well, we'll talk about one of your star boys supporting United. Maybe he's coming to United too.
Shut up, Luke Shaw.
But no, I agree with you, man. I really like Cobby and Rice together. I feel like they're both somewhat capable of doing what the other does. So if Rice does want to drive a bit, then Cobby can sit. Like he's not incapable of doing that positioning wise. He's disciplined enough to do that. Unless you're Jacob Steinberg and you're an absolute and you just want to give him poor marks on your performances all the time.
And blame him for goals, yeah.
Yeah, like what an absolute he is. But basically, Mainoo's pretty good at doing a lot of things that Rice can do. I don't think he's as good when it comes to intercepting and defensive stuff, but I think he can do it competently so that they can, kind of tell each other when.
He's better at conserving energy. Yeah. Like Rice is like Energizer Bunny. He's just like all over the place all the time. And I think Cobby's, I don't know if that's really Cobby's game. I think he could probably do it. Like he's obviously quite a mature guy, but he's still quite young. But that's where I'd say the difference is between them. I think Cobby's better on the ball. He's a better dribbler of the ball, better like close control. And then I think Rice is just he's more of an engine. He'll go around and clean up all of the back line. He's more a defensive type of player.
Definitely, and that was my other point. I think just when Rice drives with the ball, he can drive with the ball, but I don't think he's as
it's power running. Yeah, it's like knock the ball and then knock past people and do this and do that. It's kind of like a bit of a Bellingham thing, even though Bellingham's actually got really techie footwork, but it's kind of that Bellingham way of running forward where you're like dashing people out of the way, whereas Cobby's got that kind of Messi-esque, like he's going to keep the ball stuck to his foot and just dance around a couple of people.
It's silkier, Mainoo's silkier, and I think it's a bit more unpredictable. Like I feel like he's got more like kind of shimmies and feints that sell players, whereas with Rice, I don't know if he's naturally got that as part. He can do it, but I don't think it's as he can't sell players as much. Like for the example, that thing where you just talked about it, two players were converging on him, two Swiss players were converging on Cobby, and he let the ball roll past him and feinted one and shimmied the other, got through and was able to drive right through the midfield and cut it all open. Like I don't know if Rice could do that in that kind of tightish space. He can drive.
Yeah, he's not as press resistant. Yeah, he's not nowhere near as press.
But I think the point I'm trying to make, anyways, they can both do each other's jobs competently enough that they work really well and they complement each other really well. So I thought the midfield was great. I feel like Saka was pretty much completely out of the game because of their performance.
Apparently, he was holding a bit of an injury though. That's why apparently he also didn't take a pen. Apparently, he had some sort of hamstring or something injury. So because he's been amazing for them.
No, he's been unbelievable, and I did think he was a little bit quieter than usual, but maybe I'm overselling Mainoo and Rice's impact on him. But I generally thought they played him really well anyway. I don't think
they did.
He didn't really get a sniff, and generally I feel like we were really good on the ball. Enjoyed loads of possession in that first half. We were probing, no real big chances, but it was a huge improvement. Second half, it kind of carried on the same way until Briel Mbolo scored that goal at the back post to put Switzerland up. I think it was 75 minutes. Kyle Walker, have a look at yourself, mate, because this is becoming a trend. He didn't pick up his man. Don't know what he was doing as well, because it kind of p-rolled across a little mini deflection.
Hit off of stones, and he was on the wrong side of the man and couldn't pull him back because Briel Mbolo is an absolute tank.
Yeah, flat-footed though. Like for someone who's so
positionally poor.
Yeah, and I feel like he did that in the FA Cup final. He's done that in a couple of games already. In this Euros, where he just looks like he's kind of sleeping and just not concentrating properly. And I definitely think he needs to take responsibility, at least part responsibility for that goal. But England struck back 5 minutes later. Beautiful goal. Bukayo Saka cuts in from the right wing, edge of the box. I was watching it live and I was about 10 seconds ahead of the other lad's feed at the wedding. So I was trying not to give it away. But I actually was like, as much as he's done this a few times for Arsenal, right? And I can think of that amazing goal he scored against us where he actually slapped it in the bottom corner. I was like, don't do it, man. Put the cross in or do something else, because it didn't look like it was over.
There was too many bodies in the way. Like it looked like it was going to be a real hard one. But
it didn't look like
I want to call out Rice. Like the little overlap that Rice did is something that, Saka gets double teamed frequently, and I think in this match he got double teamed quite a lot too. And the only way that you really get out of that and give him a one-on-one opportunity is if somebody's running around the edge, right? And that's what Ben White always does so well at Arsenal. But it doesn't really happen in this England team, right? Like I think when we had Walker at right back. I don't know why he doesn't really use his pace in that way, but he was kind of playing that more defensive role and really wasn't doing a lot of the kind of outside running. So Saka was kind of just stuck in this double team role. But Rice, his ability in this case, I don't think he went around the outside. He actually went on the inside, but he managed to draw one of the men away, which allowed Saka to do his kind of Robin-esque. He's going to do the same thing every time, and you can't do anything about it type of thing, where he just cuts inside and slaps it. So that was really good, and I want to call out Rice's role there because that's part of the whole engine thing that he's doing. Like in the 80th minute or whatever it is, he's still pegging it past people and trying to create some space.
Yeah, no, that was key actually, because that was I think there's like a split second before he shoots where that space opens up, and that's what I'm saying. It goes from what you're doing, there's so many people in the way, don't shoot now, to oh my god, it's opened up. Like I can see the vision, and then boom, it happens so quickly. I think it actually helps Saka score that goal. In fact, because I don't think he strikes it as cleanly as that United.
No, it's a bit of a dribbler.
Yeah, that United goal I'm remembering was like a rocket in the bottom corner, and De Gea had no chance. This one, I feel like if Sommer had not been confused by all the movement that had happened in the split second before, like maybe he could have stretched and got a fingertip to it or something like that, and stopped the goal going in. But yeah. Bounces in off the post, 1-1.
Placement,
Absolute
beautiful.
Yeah,
off the post.
Right in the corner off the post. Yeah. No chance really, considering Sommer's not got that kind of early run to try and jump at it.
See it.
And 1-1. And I feel like it was well deserved because I don't think Switzerland played that well in this game. I have to be honest with you. I feel like England generally did a pretty good job. And I feel like if either team deserved to win, maybe slightly edging it to England, but it was like a 51-49 type situation. It wasn't disgrace that went 1-1 into extra time. Extra time though was super underwhelming, and I feel like Switzerland actually probably played their best football in the 30 minutes afterward. What Pickford's doing, Shaqiri hits the post with a corner, no idea. That would have been absolutely horrendous to lose a quarterfinal with that kind of blunder. But then he makes a good save afterwards to take it to pens. And yeah, bloody hell. That penalty shootout was so nerve-wracking because, am I right in saying Kane and Foden came off in extra time,
and Foden
right?
both off. Yeah, Foden came off in the 115th minute for Trent. Obviously, yeah, Kane had come off quite a lot earlier than that. Like we were down to, I don't know if it's not a penalty shootout type of team that we really had on the pitch at that point, even though everyone did step up, right? Like you had Tony and Palmer, who obviously are clear when it comes to pens, but like to not have Kane, to not have Foden, that was a hard one. It was a nerve-wracking one, especially.
Yeah, no, I was worried when we got to penalties in the end because the team just looked so different, and like you said, you missing Kane in particular, I felt like was the big standout. Like Foden, I can't really remember if he's such a great penalty taker, but you'd want him on the pitch anyway. You right?
Yeah, he's a key attacker. You'd hope he'd take one. Yeah.
But when I actually saw the players individually step up, I was really confident, though, I have to admit. The only one I was a bit worried about was Saka, but that's because of the history and everything to do with it. But if you look at it on paper, they're all fantastic penalty takers, if not their club's penalty taker. Palmer's obviously Cole Palmer, pen merchant. Saka has been or is joint penalty taker for Arsenal with Odegaard. Ivan Toney's the unbelievable penalty taker, and at some point had never missed one. I think he's missed one to my memory for Brentford. Yeah. So, happy to see him step up. And I think
Bellingham's got a massive pair of nuts on him, so exactly. I trust him with any kind of very high pressure situation.
Yeah,
and Trent doesn't take penalties for Liverpool, but he can hit the ball better than anyone in our team. Like when it comes, like as much as I diss him, like there's no one that strikes a ball cleaner than Trent. Yeah. So like on a penalty, everyone wants to do these dribblers kind of into like that mid like hip height. If Trent goes up, he's not doing that. He's slapping it into the top corner. It was a bit like that Jules Koundé, I think, his penalty for France. He just like absolutely binned it. Yeah. I can't remember if it was him or if it was somebody earlier, but he binned it into like the top side net and it was unbelievable. But when Trent stepped up, I knew like he was not going low. Yeah. Like my guy is going to slap it top corner.
Yeah. With Trent, the only worry was that he might blaze it. But because he absolutely wallops him. I think he recorded like one of the hardest strikes at the tournament with his penalty. So, Anyway, when all those guys stepped up, I was confident. And I think this England team, when we get to penalties, there's a lot more confidence in the team. And I think it's not only because of the history, and obviously Southgate was, one of the players who've missed a really famous penalty for England that cost us in a tournament. But it's also just the individual qualities of the players that we have when it comes to penalties. Like I said, those 5 guys, you'd back them. They're either their club's penalty takers, or they've got nads the size of nobody's business, right? But then think, like you just said, we can flip this on the script. Like Kane is also, you'd want him in there, and he didn't take one. Foden, you'd probably want him in there, and he didn't take one. You'd want Eze probably, who I'm pretty sure he's Crystal Palace's penalty taker, so you'd want him in there. Like, we've actually got a real set of top penalty takers. So for once, as much as I think history makes us feel a bit more nervous than we should, looking at those lads step up, Saka was the only one I was a bit worried about, and that's only because of the history. But when you get past that and think logically, he's a very good penalty taker. So I think we were an advantage because, a lot of Switzerland's best players are either defenders or midfielders. So,
mate, their first 2 penalties were both of their centre backs. It was Akanji and Cher with their first 2 penalties. I remember turning to the geezer next to me and thinking, "What the hell are they doing?"
It's their best players.
Exactly, like Saka didn't even take one. It was mental.
Yeah, but thank God we got it done. I think, what was it, 5-3 in the end. Akanji was the only one who missed it. There was apparently some S-housery going on beforehand, which is obviously sad for Akanji because I do like him. But, the game's a game. We've got to do what you got to do. And, England go through on penalties. So, we've talked about some of the best performances. Obviously, Saka, I think he was critical. I didn't think his actual performance on the ball was fantastic, but obviously came up with a huge goal. He was always running at the defender and obviously scoring a pen and everything like that. It's just his smile, everything like that was, it was Saka's day.
Can I question you on that? So, what do you think he didn't do on the ball?
No, I feel like I don't think he was bad, but I feel like he's been pretty consistently decent when it comes to. He's been taking on his man. He's been trying to swing crosses in. I just don't think a lot came off for him. I don't think it's his fault. I think he was doing what he could do, and a lot of blame can be put on Kane, Foden, even Bellingham in terms of chipping in to help him. Because at the end of the day, he can only do so much. Like when he's trying to run at defenders, he needs someone to be there. I can think of a couple of cutbacks he did which were good, but no one was there. So he was trying, and I feel like he's not a one-man band. He needs support, and I've seen games.
But he's playing as a right wing back. He's not supposed to go and do anything.
Yeah, but that was kind of that kind of stuff. Did you think he really was a right wing back? I know that was where it was like.
Well, he was a right wing back in the same way that Pedro Porro is a right wing back. He's not obviously not defensively really a defender. He was more of an attacking position, but he definitely was doing. He was definitely doing a lot to help out Kyle Walker.
No, he tracked back.
He was getting back. If I can't remember if it was in the extra time where he literally pegged it all the way back and got a block in the 110th minute or whatever. Yeah. But the reason I just wanted to say that was because I felt like this was a vintage Saka performance. When I say vintage, I don't mean his best ever type of performance, because in his best performances, he just takes the game into his own hands and he'll just slap one top corner, slap one wherever, and kind of do his own thing, right? He'll win a penalty here, do whatever there. But I think he had at least, I think it was 3 or 4 chances where he got the ball, stopped the defender on their spot, kind of dilly-dallied with it a little bit, and then cut past him onto what you think is his weaker side, and managed to get past, in certain cases, a double team of defence, right? In a couple of the opportunities, I think he actually could have gone down and tried to win a penalty, because he did get dashed.
That was the
twice out of the 3 or 4. Yeah,
he got
exactly.
Fouled, he got fouled,
and he did that to get to the byline. He literally got so close, almost at the at the goal mouth essentially. And there's no one in there. And I feel like on another day he could have come out of that match with a goal and 2 assists if Kane, Bellingham, or whoever else was in the box. And I think we would be talking about that as Saka's had a 10 out of 10 performance. Yeah. So I agree with you. He didn't have the best game I've ever seen on the ball, but I feel like he was our best threat on the ball
absolutely.
To really do anything. I would actually say him and Cobby, really, because Cobby did a couple of different runs where he managed to dash past 3 or 4 different people, and then it just got too congested and no one gave him an option to pass the ball to them. So it didn't end up really resulting in anything. But the 2 of them really, in my opinion, offered the biggest threat that we had, and it was much better than us just lumping it into the box for Kane to lose a header over and over and over again. I think throughout this tournament, I haven't seen Kane win one aerial duel,
Yeah, he's
which is
struggled.
disgusting.
He's struggled.
For somebody of that size and that experience, and he's pretty strong, to not win a single aerial duel stinks to the high heavens, mate.
Yeah, he struggled, but no, I agree with that. I agree with that. That's my analysis of Saka's performance. Really, I felt like he worked his balls off, both defensively and offensively. I don't think the wing back thing was really true though, because he was very high. Like he basically was playing right wing, but he just had to come back. Like he had to come back. It was like he could not cheat ever. But I think that's the reason why Gareth goes with him, because he knows that he will never cheat, and that if you
he's
tell
got
him,
the engine to get up and get back.
yeah, and he's disciplined, man. He will do what you ask him to do. This is the thing about him. It's not only his talent and skill going forward, but he's clearly one of the best players for Arsenal and England when it comes to carrying out instructions. That's why he always gets trusted ahead of other players who may have been in better form or whatever, right? But no, I agree with you. He created things and he was trying his best offensively to make things happen. And on a few occasions, he managed to get past his man on the right side. And it was, not for the want of what he was trying to do, basically, that we didn't score or create something more dangerous or get shot off or whatever. It was literally because either players didn't turn up in those offensive moments, or with that Kobe chance I just talked about. I think it was Akanji or Shah or whatever put in an unbelievable block that stopped it from being a goal. But yeah, there's been standout performances of Saka for England. I think at the France game at the last World Cup, where he was ripping the left back to shreds, like ripping him. And that's all I'm saying. I don't think it was like that level, but he was clearly our best attacker. Everything good that we had came from Saka. He obviously scored. He did the penalty. It was Saka's day, so big him up. And I agree with you. Mainu was a second place because I feel like he made some really good runs, and just his link up play with Saka on the right hand side was good too. And like I said, in midfield, he was really good with Rice, and he was. We need a midfielder like that. We need someone who's going to drive with the ball,
someone
break
who's
lines.
Technically sound,
and unpredictable. Because I feel like we've got, some of the play can be predictable sometimes, and that's the things you need. So Kane and Foden, though, all-time stinkers again, unfortunately. To bring the negativity back in, really bad. And we'll talk about maybe what we need to do afterwards. But quickly, I think we've talked about it already. England deserved to beat Switzerland, right? Would you say overall, or do you think? I don't want to get back to this lucky stuff because I don't think it was that conversation, but.
No, I think we deserved it. We deserved to win that match. I think first half we were really good, right? Like we'll talk about this a little bit later. But what is your opinion of the formation that we came out with? Like, do you think that worked?
I mean, we played better, so I would say if you want to use that as a example or kind of evidence of formation working, then I guess you can't argue.
Do you think that we had like a more distinct style of play doing it though?
I don't think so. Not in terms of style of play. I think we looked more secure, and I felt like it helped us get the ball more. But I don't think it helped us necessarily create more chances or improve patterns of play. I still think we were relying on Saka beating a man, Kobe driving with the ball, and hoping that Bellingham, Kane, or Foden would do some sort of moment of brilliance. I still don't think there was like little triangles and little patterns where we performed, routines that we were working on. It just looked more stable, and I feel like in terms of matching Switzerland, it was the right call. But I don't know if we should go ahead with this regardless. I think we're going to have to be game by game, mate. I think in terms to like.
I agree to an extent. I will say though, like my main complaint about England up until this last game was we essentially had a formation and everybody played within about 5 meters of where they're supposed to be in that formation. Like nobody was moving around and really giving any space. There was a lot of long balls, a lot of like you were forced to, right? And this is where I think Declan Rice ended up not looking so great. And a lot of our players ended up not looking so great is because they kept getting forced to play long balls into people who were not running behind, right? Like Kane wasn't running behind, Foden wasn't running behind, Jude wasn't running behind, Saka even wasn't running behind. And so people were forced into playing this style, and then we were just losing aerial duels, and we'd basically have the ball for about 5 seconds before we lost it because we just tried some hit and hope football. And in this game, I will say that the main thing that I was complaining about was off the ball movement. Like when someone's on it, are you giving him an option to feet, right? Are you giving him an option in behind? What are you doing to allow that player on the ball to actually get the next phase of play and to progress the ball. And I think in this game, we were way better for that, right? Like the amount of movement, having that many people in the midfield, I think even Foden, I want to call him out for being bad, but he was pretty good in terms of getting on the ball. He just didn't do very much with it once he got it. But, there was a lot of movement off the ball, a lot silkier. I think when we were on the ball, we looked a lot better. We were stringing a lot more together. It was just really that like final third play where we weren't really, it looked like we run out of ideas. And I think a lot of that, in my opinion, really comes down to Kane and Kane's kind of confusion in where he's supposed to be in that role. And is he supposed to be dropping deep or is he supposed to be staying up, whatever it was. But I think, in my opinion, I think the formation definitely worked. I can't comment as to whether it was like just the perfect formation to play against Switzerland or not. Like, I don't know if any other team lined up like that against Switzerland, so I can't really compare it to anything, but it definitely did kind of dull their offensive threat. It made it a lot harder for them to really get the ball up the pitch. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a much better performance. I think second half we were quite flat. This is where like the whole deserving to beat Switzerland part gets a bit iffy, because when we came out for that second half, I think it was the next 20 minutes, we looked really flat and we just kind of sat back and just gave them the ball for the most part. And it looked like we kind of had run out of a bit of steam and looking a bit leggy. So I think overall we deserve to beat them just off of balance. I don't think they deserve to beat us is where I'd say that. Like, I don't think they did enough to come out and beat us, but on quality, I think we deserve to beat them. I think we had better chances or better half chances than they did, even though XG, I'm sure, will say something different. But I believe off the eye test, we definitely had the better of it. So I don't think it was lucky. I do think when it comes down to penalty shootout, it is considered to be lucky just to win a penalty shootout because it's such a 50-50 type of thing. But when you look at the quality of the penalties we took and the quality of football that we played in the 90 plus 30, I do think we deserve to win it. Do you think so, or do you think that was a lucky victory on our part?
Nah, I don't think so. I agree with you completely. I think if we compare it or use like kind of a boxing analogy, it wasn't a knockout victory, but it was a points victory. Like we won more rounds. Like I think England were much better in the first half without creating loads of chances, like you said, probably like a 10-8 round. And then the second half and added time, probably Switzerland had maybe 10-9, but I feel like we won that match. And I agree with you. Penalty shootouts are a bit of a lottery, but you can make it. You can. How can I phrase this? You can make it not a lottery if you practice them and you have top class penalty takers. You take it into your own hands, and that's what I think we did. I don't think we had to rely on Pickford making a worldie. That save he made, he should make that save.
Pretty routine.
He should make that save. That's an
poor penalty.
It wasn't a great penalty. And I think the penalties we took, I thought they were all amazing. Like, I mean, Palmer's penalty was amazing. The feint and tuck it away. Jude again, feint tuck. Saka's one. Unless
it was a bit of a dribbler, but it was positioned perfectly.
Yeah,
it's kind of like his goal. Like, he didn't connect with it well. It was a bit of a nervy connection, but he managed to place it perfectly.
Yeah, he didn't strike it the best, but in terms of accuracy, it was perfect. Like, I mean, the goalie, even if the goalie went the right way, there's no guarantee
it's hard to get your foot. Yeah, it's hard to get a hand on
that. You
could
could get maybe a hand on touch on it, but there's no guarantee he's going to get enough contact to save it, even with the speed and lack of connection. So I feel like that was, again, good penalty. Tony's penalty was so good that the goalie was there, had his hand basically on it and couldn't save it. So that tells you what you need to know about that.
Because he didn't look at the ball. He didn't look at the ball once. And I was trying to figure out in my head, like, is this just showing off or what? But
he always does that.
I can't remember what the podcast was, but I was like trying to understand why is it so effective? Because in my opinion, like, you're adding risk that you might miss kick it because you're not looking at it. But at the same time, on the benefit side, the goalkeeper can't move. And I heard, I don't know if it was Ben Foster or somebody on the podcast was basically talking about, like, if you just look at the goalkeeper the whole time, if he moves, he's screwed it. So he's got to move really late if you look at him like that. So even if you do end up like flopping it, you've got a bigger margin for error because apparently, like, if you were just looking at the ball, they could move a bit earlier and then you've really got to place it perfectly to get it into the right side of the net, right? And to get a goal. Whereas this one, because he's watched the goalkeeper literally the entire time, the goalkeeper can only dive so far if they dive late. And just, I know it seems really obvious, but when I thought through all of that, I was like, okay, there's a lot of sense in that in the way that he takes that penalty. It's still very ballsy, but
yeah, so risky.
yeah, like it's amazing.
It's so risky because you basically have to have like a super soft ankle to be able to flick to open your leg out and your foot out to side foot it or wrap it. Like that decision needs to happen like that in the last minute based on what the goalie does movement wise. And if you look at Sommer, he literally waits and dives only after Tony hits it. So it's literally just if Tony didn't connect as well as he did, Sommer's saving that. So in terms of execution, it was 10-10. And Trent's one, he just absolutely slapped the smithereens off it.
Yeah.
So, like he's not going to save it regardless. So if you do that, you win a penalty shootout. Like you win it. Like it doesn't matter what else happens, you're going to win that. So I think England deserved it, and I think I feel bad for Switzerland because I like them and they're a good team, but I think England deserves to go through, and it's what they deserve.
And as a former goalkeeper yourself, what do you make of the whole like Pickford's water bottle having all the different things that he's supposed to do?
They all do that though, isn't it? Like this has become like a totally normal thing now. Like I know every time after a penalty shootout comes out, they always do this. Like the cameraman will find a way to zoom in onto the goalie's bloody water bottle or towel or whatever and find his secret notes. But it's normal, isn't it? I feel like every penalty shootout, goalies have that. They know their homework and they always get a proper good kind of prepping from the goalkeeping coaches before. So I'm not shocked. And I feel like in those big crunch moments, even more so, because I feel like those players are going to go with what they feel the most comfortable with, unless you are one of the few that has massive, nuts, and you're willing to change it up last minute. So
as Troy Deeney would
exactly,
say.
Troy would be proud of all of those penalties. I can't lie, they were all ballsy, man. So yeah, big them up. And on that point, there's obviously been a lot of discussion now on the social media channels around the 5 penalty takers that took the penalties and got England through. Obviously being Cole Palmer, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, Ivan Toney and Trent Alexander-Arnold, all either black or of mixed heritage. And I think Rio made a post being like, with all their faces being like, basically like, how do you like us now? These are the lads that have got us through. I don't hear people coming out and singing their praises the same way the 3 lads who missed the penalties in the last Euros final got abused.
Yeah. Are they keeping the same?
Yeah. What do you make of the whole discussion? Because it is obviously super toxic. It's obviously identity politics that always gets very messy online.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you make of the whole discussion? Do you feel like it's right for us to talk about this and bring it up after in a positive scene, or do you feel like it's something that we should just kind of ignore and crack on with?
No, I feel like it's perfectly fine to bring it up. I think it is important to note because I think it's true to an extent, right? Like there aren't people coming out and singing specifically the praises of these individual players. Like I know that people are like, oh, Saka had a great performance, Trent came on late, blah blah blah, right? Like I know people are saying that, but there's no like, oh, like be proud of these lot. They've done such a great job for their country. Like the look of these English lads. There's none of that like Brexit BS that typically happens when it's the other way around and they flop it, right? Which is, oh, he's not even English. Oh, go back to wherever he came from. Blah 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 blah. Right? It's all of this kind of BS that happens. I don't know if those people really do keep the same energy. Right? When England win, it's more like, oh, England have won. Doesn't matter who it was that contributed to it. Whereas if it's England lose, it's not, oh, England have lost. No, it's this person sucked, and this person sucked. And unfortunately, in the case of the last time it happened, there were 3 black players, which unfortunately to the simpletons out there, that's the only thing that they can think of saying, because they've got some sort of deep rooted hatred for those kinds of people. And that's just the thing that comes to their brain, right? It's the way that they think they can hurt people. So I do think it's rightfully called out. I'm happy to see it called out. I think it's a bit of a stretch on Cole Palmer. I know obviously he is of a mixed background, but like if you saw him walking down the street, you probably wouldn't think that. So it's a bit of a stretch, but I think it's good to big them up because this is a major moment for us, and everyone's been complaining so much about England's performances. It's these lot that have been carrying us, right? Like Bellingham overhead kick to keep us in the tournament. Saka last minute equaliser essentially to keep us in the tournament, and then they've gone and taken worldy penalties, like you said, that get us through to the next round. And now no one's complaining about, or not no one's complaining, but everyone's a bit more accepting of how poorly we've performed as a country. So, I'm fine with it. Like, I don't know if we need to take it really far and like keep on banging on about it like over and over again. But I think generally it's good to point out, because I hope if something does happen in the future with a player that is of, a mixed origin or of a background that is not typically white British, I do hope that people remember this, right? And remember that these guys have been doing it for us for so long. And it's also really important to take into account. I mean, outside of Tony and Trent, they're not old, but like outside of them, they're all young players. Like, these are young guys that are stepping up when our talismanic type players are off. They're on the bench, right? They've been subbed off. So these lot are having the balls to come out there and take a penalty in what they know is probably, if they miss it, going to be a similar situation to last time. So I think you really got to call that out. And yeah, I don't see any problem with calling it out. But again, if we take it too far, then of course it's going to get a bit cheap.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I feel like it's important to call it out. It's important to give these young lads, like you said, for the most part, praise and kind of give them that encouragement that their bravery has earned. Let's be real. Like you said, worldy penalties, high pressure moment, so much negativity around the team the whole tournament, and they've come out and absolutely slapped it and won us the game and taken it, like you said, and we've discussed, out of the hands of the gods or whatever, and a lottery kind of penalty shootout, and made it our own. So I feel like you've got to give them respect, and you've got to, in the same way people would point out their backgrounds if they were to fail, point out their backgrounds now in their glory and in their victory. Yeah, the Cole Palmer stuff's obviously super funny, and it's always going to make people, get super divisive, because on the face of it, he looks like, the any old white guy that you would, young kid that you would see. But obviously, yeah, he's mixed heritage, and I think his granddad is from like Kitts and Nevis or something like that, or from an island in the Caribbean. So, and he's proud of it. You've obviously got his Vibes video where he come out and rapped along. So yeah, he's obviously proud of his heritage. So yeah, big them all up, and well done to all five of them for scoring their penalties and representing the UK in like an authentic way, because we all know, and we've got friends from all different backgrounds. We don't just have friends, and our society is built up of people from all different countries and ethnicities in this country. So, and we're proud of them all. So yeah, big up those guys. And yeah, sometimes we all needed a reminder of how things could have gone if they went another way, and how they have in previous times, and remind people
Yeah.
that we can do better. So hopefully that moment never comes, but if it does come and England lose at some point, we don't follow that well-trodden path of looking for scapegoats and blame the people that don't look like the majority of the people in the UK or whatever. So
Yeah, and I want to just call out one last point, and this is maybe more of a personal vendetta, but I saw the back pages, after the victory. No one's calling out Saka again. Right? Like, he's the face when we lose, even though he's on for about 10 minutes, right? And they've got ridiculous headlines like Black Ice or whatever it was, right? And now it's a group of the penalty takers, right? It's pictures of them, or it's pictures of Gareth Southgate, and it's got nothing to do with him, even though he got us the equaliser and then took a really high pressure penalty. Nothing. So this is again where I'm going to say keep the same energy, because it's not just the people, it's the media, right? And I think maybe this is the point of why Rio wants to call it out and a couple of other people want to call it out, is because they know that the mainstream media aren't going to, right? Unless it's I guess a negative thing, they don't tend to call people out specifically. When it's a positive thing, for some reason, everybody's in the pictures and everybody's getting and everyone's getting the headlines and whatever else. But that's one thing I just want to call out, because I feel like that is a bit foul, right? Like the fact that he can be scapegoated and literally put on every single one of the papers. Like, this is where it's a bit dodgy. Like, how have 4 different journalists gone to 4 different editors and said, here, use this picture of Saka, when he's been on the pitch for 15 minutes? And now, again, not a single person put forward a picture of Saka or put forward a picture of Bellingham or whoever else it was. So that's another thing I just want to call out, right? Like, it may not just be about a person to person level, but it's also a media thing. Like, you guys have got to keep the same energy too, man. And I know you won't, because that's not your mandate and that's not what you care about. But they've got to keep the same energy, and then that's where some people might see Rio's thing and say, "Oh, well, you're being divisive. You're being this, that, and the other." Just remember, he might not only be talking to you guys, mate. He might be talking to the mainstream media, the journalists, the editors out there who they know what they're doing. So I just want to call that out. And I know it sounds like a Saka bias from me, and it probably is, but I want the newspapers to keep the same energy too.
Now, sometimes you got to address the balance of things, and I see it. Sometimes Rio irritates me for the mere fact that he goes overboard with a lot of different, kind of opinions that he has. He doesn't normally stay very balanced, shall we say, which I know is harsh to request of someone, because in some ways he's kind of a fan like the rest of us, right? But I can see it with some of his comments. He's now kind of like overpraising Saka. And why would he do that? It's because the rest of the media kind of always overlooks him, like you've just said. When he does something really well, they don't give him his flowers, or they kind of skirt around it. And when he is not even involved in a disappointment, or kind of part of a losing team, or has part of a negative result, they jump on him, or he too often becomes the poster boy for that kind of negativity. So I get it. It's a big PR game essentially going on around the team, and in our country. So it makes sense. But yeah, big up those 5 players. Big up Saka for his impact, and on to the semi-finals we go. But quickly, last question on this game. Do you think something's got to be done now with this Kane and Foden situation? Because I agree with you. Foden did get on the ball, and I think structurally that setup allowed players to kind of not get in each other's ways as much as they were before.
Yeah.
I think the Bellingham Foden thing, they were both stepping on each other's toes. Then Kane was dropping deep, and they were all on each other's toes before. And I feel like it was a bit better. I feel like Foden and Bellingham dovetailed much better. They weren't stepping on each other's toes, but it didn't work. Like you said, the cutting edge
didn't result in a bunch of open play goals.
Yeah. So what do you think? I know, like, we would maybe make a big ballsy call and drop Kane and Foden, but do you think Gareth will actually do that? Because I feel like Tony and Palmer are probably the players who would come in, right? Like, do you think he will? And do you think it would be justified?
Do I think he will? No, because it's Gareth Southgate. He doesn't change quickly. Or actually, wait, he's very selective about where he changes quickly. He might hear somebody say 5-3-2, and then suddenly he's playing a 5-3-2, or he's playing whatever else. Right? He might do that sometimes, but for the most part, he's pretty stubborn about what he does. So I don't think he will do it. If it was me, what I'd probably do is start both of them. But at 45 minutes, if they're not doing anything, I'm taking them both off. And this is the problem with Southgate, is that he makes all of his changes in like the 85th minute, and it takes a goal going down a goal for him to make any changes, right? He's very, very passive. I said this to a mate of mine when I was watching it. He's such a passive, reactive manager. He doesn't ever really be proactive about making changes like, oh, it's 0-0, let's go and earn a victory here. It's more like, oh, let's just keep doing the same thing and wait for them to make a mistake. He's like trying to play a game of chess, like a 24-hour game of chess in a 90-minute match, which doesn't make any sense to me. So that's probably what I would do if I was the manager of the team. But I know he's not going to do that. So from my point of view, if I'm telling Southgate and knowing what he's going to end up doing with the substitutes, I'm telling him to drop both of them, because I think Foden has been kind of harshly done by in terms of the fact that he's been playing left wing, and he's clearly not a left winger. Kind of like when Rashford plays striker, he maybe he could do it, he just doesn't want to do it, and he's not going to do it. He's just going to keep on drifting into wherever he wants to play. So if you know that, like, I guess judging Foden off of his first like 4 or 5 performances is probably a bit harsh, because he's not really that position and he shouldn't really be playing it. But this isn't a season-long 38-game season, right? Like, we don't have time to just wait for Foden to do something good because you played him in the position. He might have another stinker next week as well. Who knows? So from my point of view, you've got to be proactive about this. You've got essentially 2 games left if we get through the next one. You've got to make a change. And Foden is clearly the one out of all of them that has been doing, in my opinion, the least impact-wise. And I feel like Eze has deserved an opportunity to get onto the pitch. I think Cole Palmer's deserved an opportunity to get onto the pitch. And who's to say you can't bring Foden on if you want to at some point in the game, right? If you're really lacking some sort of Foden-type energy, you can bring him on. And the same goes for Kane. He looks like he's taking a bit of a knock now. He's also on a yellow card. I think if he gets another one, he might be banned for the final. There's no, there could be no harm in dropping Kane and letting Tony, or in my opinion, even let Watkins have an opportunity, because then you get some speed. When Saka's getting down to the byline, Watkins is going to be in there somewhere, right? Like Watkins going to be in the mix. Tony, he's not a goal hanger, but he's going to be in where he's supposed to be as a striker. So I don't think it would be crazy to drop Kane and Foden and let somebody else have a go. Particularly against, I think, Virgil van Dijk. We're going to need somebody that's going to challenge them. We're going to need somebody that's going to be pushing off their shoulder and not let them be such a front foot defender. And I think Kane just allows a lot of defenders to come onto him, and he's not got the pace to beat them. So they're really comfortable. They'll just push him further and further deep, where he seems to be pretty comfortable playing, and there's going to be no threat in behind them. Whereas even a Tony, he's going to get up and push you back. Like, you're not going to push him forward. He's going to push you back and back and back and back until you're like literally on the edge of your 18-yard box. Watkins is going to not push you necessarily, but he's going to be on your shoulder and wait for a ball over the top. And he's not going to allow you to play so high up the pitch. So you're not going to be able to suffocate us, because you're always going to have that, right? And this was something I saw in the Switzerland game. Akanji and Cher had no problems dealing with Kane. They had no worries about him going in behind them. And in the second half, there was literally periods where all 10 of their outfielders were in our half. And I think if you've got Watkins or a Tony there, that they're not allowing that to happen. And I think that helps us in terms of that suffocation type football that somebody might try play against us. So, in my opinion, drop both of them and try something new. If it's not working, bring Kane, bring Foden on it at halftime. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I would do it too. I would drop definitely Foden. I'm not sure about Kane. I feel like I'd probably start Kane again, but if it's not working at half time or at 60 minutes, I'd pull the trigger. And I'm more likely, unless this whole structure's gone wrong, swap him for Tony. But if you can see that we're not getting any joy and we need that threat in behind, then I would bring on Watkins without even a second thought, because we need that threat. I think generally in most games anyway, but it really depends on the situation in the game. I think Foden are definitely, like I said, I feel like it's harsh, like you said, because he's kind of been forced to play out of position, but the game's the game. He's played in lots of positions. He's such a multifaceted player that I agree with you in terms of the Rashford comparison, but I feel like Rashford is a bit more one-dimensional than Foden. So, I kind of give him a bly if he's not able to play in a certain position. But Foden has played right wing, left wing, and cam for Man City over the last 3 or 4 years. He's more than capable of doing it. For some reason, it's not working. So I would take him out. And like you said, I'm not mad at either Eze or Palmer, because I thought Eze looked really good as well, by the way, when he came on. I thought he looked really sharp and he was picking the ball around. So, I would definitely make those changes. Definitely more on the Foden side. Kane, I might just keep him on there a bit, because if you get like a half chance, because you saw it, the 2 goals he has scored, they're strikers' goals. And he scored them despite playing poorly.
He's clinical. So,
you never know.
But I want to ask you one more. I know that we're dragging on a bit with this segment, but I really want to ask you one more question, right? Konsa played well, right? Like I think he dealt with Imbolo quite well. He dealt with their strikers quite well, right? He's physical. He's really good, really on it, right? The goal wasn't his fault. You've got Guehi coming back now, right? If you stick with this five at the back type of formation, even though I know the wing backs aren't really playing defensively, but if you stick with this formation that he's just gone for, what do you do about the Konsa situation? Do you think Walker gets a drop?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a Konsa Guehi thing, I go back to Guehi just because he's performed more. But it's really encouraging to see how well Konsa's done, because I feel like he was very competent and he played. He was very stable. Like there was no shaky moments for me with him, so that's really good. Yeah, Walker's one, man. I've been talking about how poorly he's done since I think the second game.
He's had at least 2 stinkers.
Yeah, he's had 2 all-time stinkers, and then one game where he was decent against Denmark, I think, and then another game where he was quite poor as well. So he's not done well, man. So I would have taken him out earlier.
Because he's gonna have to deal with Cody Gakpo.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Apparently on fire.
That's the only thing I'm worried about. This might not be the game to take him out because it might actually be one of the ones where his pace is useful, recovery wise. Because the options, what Trent, I guess. I mean, you could put Trippier there, but I thought he didn't look good in that last game either. I felt like he was.
If you go 3 at the back, though, you could put Konsa, Stones, and Guehi.
No, it depends.
And have like Stones play a bit more front foot, maybe.
Yeah, if they do a 5 at the back, you could put Konsa, but I think the recovery pace is still needed with Walker, so they probably would keep him. So I think, I mean, personally, I would have dropped Walker ages ago and probably maybe brought him in for this game and the France game if France get through, but I don't think there's any chance he's going to get dropped. If I'm honest, I think Southgate's going to keep him in there. And it will just be Guehi coming in for Konsa. And I think he'll keep the rest of the back 5 the same. But yeah, it was an interesting one, man. But big up Konsa. I've always rated him. I think he's a good defender. So I was saying to a mate of mine, this really proves that Harry Maguire doesn't ever need to touch pitch again for England. What? It's just true.
Unless we need Slabhead to score a goal for us because we can't score a bloody goal off of
yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe for his attacking threat or just have him in the squad. But in terms of a starter, I think it's been proven that both Guehi and Konsa can do it more than competently. And then you've got the Branthwaites and the Tomoris.
Not the Dunk.
Yeah, get Dunk out.
Not Dunk.
I'd maybe swap Maguire in for Dunk because I actually think Maguire is better than Dunk. But the rest of the young defenders, I'd put them ahead of him. I think they've done really well. I think defensively has probably been the only area where we've been pretty stable. But all right, Johns, let's wrap up that segment then. England win. We're into the semi-finals where we're going to face Netherlands. So let's get into the semi-final preview section then. It's Spain, France on Tuesday, right? And then England,
Holland on Wednesday.
Yeah, England, Netherlands on Wednesday. So we get one more day rest. Or do we? Because I feel like those guys played the day before us anyway. So I think it's maybe the same amount of days rest, but then the turnaround time between the semis and the final, if we get through, we get one day less. Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky. But yeah, let's get into the preview and the prediction section then for Netherlands. In terms of, I just want to quickly touch before we get into that, our predictions for the tournament update. You're the only one left, right, with any dogs left in the race, because I predicted Germany. They've obviously gone out. My dark horse was Hungary, and they went out ages ago. Your prediction was England to win, so you're still in there. And who was your dark horse again?
It was originally Portugal, but you wouldn't let me have that, so I think I changed it to...
I think you went for Austria.
It could have been Austria, or Croatia or someone like that. Yeah. That's done.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm only in it for the winner.
You were probably right on that. If it was Austria, they did pretty well. So the one we really missed out was Turkey, though, because I feel like they probably were the real answer to that dark horse because they did really well. So
Turkey and Switzerland. I'll be honest with you, Switzerland, as much as we just beat them, I feel like Switzerland did a good job. Like they were good, and they easily could have got through that. Like I think in the Turkey game,
they ran out.
I know Turkey scored first, but they kind of they were running on empty at the end of that. So yeah, Switzerland.
I think we've just underrated them. I don't know if they should even be in that conversation either. They're a good team, man.
Probably they're better than bloody Belgium.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like Turkey probably fit the dark horse mold better. They were younger and they did well. But our copper ones are doing smelly as well. We both predicted Brazil, right? They've gone out to Uruguay.
Yep.
I said Uruguay would be flops. They're obviously in the semi-finals now. My dark horse was Ecuador. They're out as well. I think your dark horse was Colombia, right? And I think they're still in.
Yes.
So again, you're looking the better of the two of us. But yeah,
but my flop was like Argentina, which is still theoretically could come true, but no,
I doubt it.
I might lose.
They're playing Canada, aren't they? So Jesse Marsh, I don't know if he can pull that one off. But let's get back to the topic then. Previews, Johns. Who do you think is going to win, Netherlands or England? And how do you think the game's going to go?
I think we're going to win. I'm going to go again for 2-1. I think England 2-1 to win this. I think it will come out and score in the first half. I think we're due a bloody first half goal with like all of our best performances really coming in the first half so far. But I think it will be, the typical complacency, we score, and then Southgate does nothing, and then just lets them kind of come on to us, and we kind of sit deep again. But I don't know. There's something brewing with England, man. There's something about them. They're so clutch. They're able to get big goals and big moments, and I'm going to rely on them to get another winner. And I think it's going to be done in the 90. I don't think we're going to extra time.
Okay, that's cool. That's interesting. I actually think it's going to end 2-2 in 90 minutes.
Ooh.
I don't
You reckon
really.
it's going pens again?
Yeah, I think. No, I think it could be done in extra time. But yeah, I think that it's very much possible that we go to pens again. And I would be confident, touch wood, but I would feel confident again if we went to pens. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it will be. I think we'll probably start off better, and it looks like Holland are a bit of a slow starter. Last couple of games, they've kind of they've gone behind, or
Conceded early,
they've looked a bit shaky and then kind of improved. They were really good against Romania, though. I will say that they did look.
Yeah.
They looked like a proper team then. But I don't trust Koeman. I think he's rubbish, and I think their team is not great, man. Defensively, they're strong, but they concede chances. So they've got brand name defenders, but Van Disney and Ake and all those guys still give up chances. So if only England's attack could just fire at least 70%, I think your result probably will come true and England could win in 90. But I just don't see how we can get to that level of attacking prowess without giving up something defensively on the other side. So I think it's going to be 2-2, and I think England will win after extra time, most likely on penalties, but I wouldn't be shocked if we won 3-2 on after extra time. But I think in the 90 it's going to be 2-2, and it's going to be a game full of drama. Because I think generally the way things have looked, half and half in terms of the fixtures have been boring stinkers, and the other half have been tight, but small margins, but better performances and some excitement and intrigue. And I think that France-Spain game is France are gonna drag them down to the depths of Stinkyville, and it's not gonna be fun for France for Spain. And I think the Netherlands-England game is probably the one that's got a bit more chance of it being open and having some more excitement. So come on, the England. I think we're going to be in the final. Who do you think is going to get through in the other game then? Because we haven't really touched on the teams, but do you think it's going to be France or Spain?
I want to say Spain because I feel like Spain deserve it because they've actually played good football and it's been somewhat enjoyable to watch. And they've got like the good young players and like their manager is a bit of a boss. Like he's come through like out of nowhere essentially, right? He's not one of the major names, but he just seems to be believing in these young players and they seem to be believing straight back. And I think they deserve to win it, but I don't know. I feel like, as you said, France have got this ability to just make anyone look stinky. While also having game winners, right? Like if you just look at that team sheet, like it's just amazing how many good players they've got in that team. So I'm probably going to go for a France one just because I feel like the stinky jammy teams, they always get something. England, a great example. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go for a France win, but I reckon I think just like you, it's going to be a stinker. No one's going to want to watch it. It's going to look terrible. It's going to be cagey, and as much as I like Nico Williams and Yamal, I just don't. I think France have got the right and left backs to deal with that, and they've got the N'Golo Kante's just running around doing everything kind of style as well. So I think it's going to be a tough one for Spain. But I want to shout out Fabian Ruiz. He's been a baller. He could be one of the reasons why they do well. I think him, Dani Olmo, Nico Williams, and Yamal have been amazing for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did win, but I just think France are going to drag them down.
Yeah, I feel like that game is going to be an era-defining game for both teams. So Spain, if they come through that, I feel like they could head into not a golden, again. Not quite that level because I don't think all of their players are up to that standard or potential. But I think they could become a force again, and we could really see Spain go deep in every single tournament going forward for the next 10 years. and France could head the other direction and decline a bit. If that does happen, or it could just be a continuation of France being strong in tournaments and just grinding things out, and Spain kind of having to wait
too early for them, maybe
bide their time a bit before they, turn into the real team that we're kind of talking about. But yeah, I expect France to get through, man. I just think they're going to Deschamps is just going to S-house his way into another final. And England, France, if that is the final, God, I think we're just going to have to just bang out coffees all day long, because I think there's going to be a high chance of everyone just snoozing throughout that game, because I think it's going to be an absolute shocker on the eye. But yeah, that's what all my predictions are anyway. I think England are going to get through, like you. I think they'll get through against Netherlands. I think it'll be slightly more difficult, and then they'll face France on the other side. And bloody hell, what a game that will be. Hopefully it will come home. I actually do think if we play France, we've got a better chance of winning. Yeah, I think if we play Spain, if it's England-Spain, I think we've got, there's a likelihood we get filled in, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I think
like France are somewhat of a known entity to us. We've played them a couple of times now. We should have a good understanding of what they're going to do. And as you say, they kind of are going to lean into that real boring style of football, which Southgate is, he was born into that. Whereas, France, I think France will just bop us off the... Spain will just bop us off the park.
Yeah, I think that will be true.